The building behind me is a barn. It's an 18,000 square foot barn made of limestone and pretty much all natural Iowa wood, much of it resurrected from barns that have been torn down. The arch you see in front of that barn, that is the largest freestanding stone arch in North America. And all of this was built by my friend and colleague Dick Schwab, Values Coach. Dick builds barns the way you or I might, ride a bike or do crossword puzzles. He builds barns. He loves to build barns. This is his 10th barn. This is the party barn. He does weddings at this barn and other such events, community service events, things like that. Now the thing you need to know about this barn is that 2 years ago it was 60% complete, and he does most of it himself and with volunteer labor, some of which includes me. And it was struck by lightning and burned to the ground. A year and a half worth of work. It took Dick about 24 hours to decide he was going to start all over, and the barn that you see now behind me is bigger, better, more beautiful, more wonderful than even what he had in mind to begin with. I'm Joe Tye, CEO of Values Coach, and your coach for this course on the 12 Core Action Values. Today we're on module number 25, Perseverance, and I thought what better place to come to talk about perseverance than Dick Schwab's barn, because it is an example of dealing with difficulty, dealing with adversity, seeing your way through, and getting something great done. Here is an ultimate truth. Every great accomplishment was once the impossible dream of a dreamer who refused to quit when the going got tough, who refused to quit when they fell on their face. They got back up and they did it again. Earlier in one of the previous modules on courage, I said that fear is a reaction and courage is a decision. Well, perseverance is making that decision every day, day after day. You run into problems, obstacles, roadblocks, detours, and you make the decision to have the courage to not quit. You know, a lot of people in this economy are thinking about starting businesses. I think you should think about that. We all should. Even if you just turn off the TV and do something at night, start a little business on the side with a hobby. It's a lot of good reasons to do that. But you're going to hear somebody say, well, you know, 8 out of every 10 or 9 out of every 10 new businesses fail. First of all, that is simply not an accurate statement. But second, the truth is businesses don't fail. Owners quit. And for every business that quote-unquote failed, there is an owner somewhere of another business in the same line of work that simply didn't give up when they ran into the same kind of problems. Businesses don't fail, owners quit. Now here's another interesting statistic about business, quote-unquote failures. Those businesses that can make 4 or 5 years are far more likely to endure than those that are flash in the pan, you know, first, second year, they quit. In today's New York Times, and I'm on July 5th here, it's an article about a young man in a hometown near mine, Coralville, Iowa. His fish store, he did exotic fish, tropical fish. His fish store got flooded in the Great Flood of the Iowa River, wiped him out completely. And because he didn't quit, he asked for help when he needed it. Remember asking for help in one of our earlier modules? He hung in there. He did what he had to do to rebuild his store. He went out and he talked to his customers. He's back in business. His business is growing again. Businesses don't fail, owners quit. Seth Godin, the business writer, wrote a book called The Dip. And he talked about that point where almost every business, and you know you could expand that to say anything worthwhile in life, you hit that point after the initial rush of enthusiasm and it just feels like you're swimming in jello, like you've run into a wall. And the question is, how do you know if you're just in that dip he's talking about, or if you persevere, if you keep working at it, you can achieve great things, or you're on the downward slide of a hill that doesn't go back up again? There's not a cookie-cutter answer to that. You know within your heart. But I'll tell you this, if you haven't given it everything you have, if you haven't really tried everything, if you haven't asked for help, if you haven't sold the TV set, if what you need is money or time or whatever, how do you know? Now, a couple practical things about perseverance, and one has to do simply with your self-talk. Keep this in mind. The difference between nouns and verbs and adjectives. To have been part of a failing enterprise, adjective. To have failed at a project or a business, verb, does not make you a failure, noun. Every great success has suffered failure along the way. Abraham Lincoln once told one of his generals, "I don't care how many times you fall down, I only care how many times you get back up." And the question is, how many times will you get back up? One more thing about words. Once a year, I put on this workshop at the Grand Canyon, the Spark a Dream workshop. You can see it at sparkadream.com. Only once a year. And at least a couple times a year, I'm going to get a call or an email from somebody who says, "I'm going to try to be there this year." You know what I want to tell them? Gee, we'll miss you. Because I know 100% of the time, they are not going to be there. Anytime you say to someone, "I'm going to try to do that," what they may be hearing and what you may be telling yourself is, "I'll do it if it's not too difficult. I'll do it if it's not too inconvenient or expensive, or if something better doesn't come along." And then when you try and you give up, you quit, what do you have? An excuse. "Well, I tried, it just didn't work." Yoda, the great philosopher, said, "Do or do not. There is no try." When you have that attitude, that determination, that commitment to perseverance, you do. You don't try, you don't quit, you do. I'm Joe Tye, and I'll see you on the next module.